Dear students, I'm going to explain today a new part in SAT biology, which is cell respiration. I'm going to explain the both types of cell respiration, if it is aerobic or anaerobic. I'm going to explain the glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and alcoholic fermentation, and lactic acid fermentation. Also, you'll find in the video the structure of the mitochondria, the structure of ATP, the electron transport chain. Generally, it is a very important part. You have to know it well when studying SAT biology. It's a foundation. So what's meant by cell respiration? Cell respiration is a series of oxidative reactions by which the cells gradually release energy stored in glucose and they transfer it into ATP. So let's try to see the equation of cell respiration. If you try to look at this equation, you'll find that glucose will react with oxygen, and finally it will produce the ATP. ATP here is the usable energy. So this equation shows the complete aerobic respiration of one molecule of glucose. So let's know now what's meant by the ATP. Generally, ATP it stores energy from immediate use in the cell. It consists of adenosine, which is nucleotide adenine plus ribose plus 3 phosphates. So it's called adenosine triphosphate. This is the general formula of ATP. It consists of the ribose, the adenine, and the 3 phosphates. So it's called adenosine triphosphate. Generally, the removal of one phosphate group from ATP results in the formation of a more stable and lower energy molecule of ADP. So as you see here, with 1, 2, 3. So ADP is adenosine triphosphate, while ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Is one phosphate, the second one, and the third one. What is the structure of mitochondria? Generally, it is enclosed by two membranes, an outer membrane and an inner crystal membrane, which is folded. As you see here, with the outer membrane, with the inner one. And here is the matrix. So, as you see from the figure in front of you, the inner membrane divides the mitochondria into two internal compartments, the outer compartment and the inner one, which is the matrix. The Krebs cycle takes place in the matrix, while the electron transport chain takes place in the crystal membrane. If the oxygen is found, aerobic respiration takes place, while if the oxygen is absent, anaerobic respiration takes place. So, if the oxygen is found or is present, aerobic respiration takes place, and glycolysis is followed by Krebs cycle. While if the oxygen is not found, so anaerobic respiration takes place, and the glycolysis is followed by alcoholic fermentation or lactic acid fermentation, and we will know it later. Let's talk about the aerobic respiration. Generally consists of two phases. The first one is glycolysis. Glycolysis, it occurs in the cytoplasm of all cells. It's a complex, multi-step process, each step of which is controlled by a different enzyme. So the equation of glycolysis, so one glucose combines with 2 ATP, it produces 2 pyruvate plus 4 ATP and 2 NADH. The glucose consists of 6 carbons, and the pyruvate consists of 3 carbons. So 2 molecules will be produced to yield 6 carbon. So as you see here in the shown equation, the two molecules of ATP supply the energy of activation. What's meant by the energy of activation? It's the energy needed to begin the reaction. And then it releases 4 ATP molecules, resulting in a net gain of 2 ATPs now. Now, we finished the first phase, which is glycolysis. The second one, which is the citric acid cycle or Krebs cycle. Generally in Krebs cycle, the pyruvate from glycolysis combines with coenzyme A, forming acetyl coenzyme A. And the citric acid cycle, it takes place in the matrix of the mitochondria. The acetyl coenzyme A, after it's produced, it enters the Krebs cycle. So as you see here from Krebs cycle, that each turn of Krebs cycle produces one molecule of ATP and FADH2 plus 3 molecules of NADH. We'll find the byproduct is carbon dioxide, which is used in exhalation process. Let's talk about the NADH and the FADH2 function in the cellular respiration. They are coenzymes that shuttle protons and electrons from glycolysis and the Krebs cycle to the electron transport chain. And we will talk about the electron transport chain later. NAD plus is the oxidized form of NADH, is the reduced form. And FAD plus is the oxidized form, while FADH2 is the reduced form. HNADH translates to the production of 3 ATPs. FADH translates to the production of 2 ATP. FADH2 and NADH transports high electrons from Krebs cycle to the electron transport chain with crystal membrane of mitochondria. So now we need to talk about the electron transport chain. The purpose of electron transport chain is to establish the proton gradient. So the proton gradient represents the enormous potential energy to power the phosphorylation of ATP to ATP. How is that? When the proton slows down a gradient through ATP synthase channel, their potential energy is transferred into kinetic energy and then to the chemical bond stored in the ATP. So the production of ATP in aerobic cellular respiration by this mechanism is called oxidative phosphorylation. Oxygen has a strong attraction for electrons and protons, so it pulls the electrons through the electron transport chain, and also it serves as the final electron and proton acceptor in the electron transport chain. So when the oxygen combines with the proton and the electrons at the end of the electron transport chain, water is formed, and this is the water vapor we exhale. Generally, the ATC is a collection of carrier molecules, the cytochromes, embedded in the crystal membrane. Each proton carried by NAD molecule to the ATC produces 3 ATP molecules, while each proton carried by FAD molecule produces 2 ATP molecules, as we said before. What about the anaerobic respiration, which is called fermentation? It consists of glycolysis plus alcoholic fermentation or lactic acid fermentation. So we'll see here that glucose will change into pyruvic acid in the first step, which is glycolysis. Then pyruvic acid undergoes one of these two processes. The first one, the alcoholic fermentation, that produces the alcohol plus carbon dioxide, or lactic acid fermentation that produces the lactic acid. If we talked about the alcohol fermentation, the bread baking industry depends on the ability of yeast to carry out fermentation and produce carbon dioxide that causes bread to rise. The beer, the wine, the liquor industries, they depend on yeast to ferment sugar into ethyl alcohol. So you'll find here the glucose will change to finally into the ethyl alcohol or the ethanol. Lactic acid fermentation. It takes place during strenuous exercise when the body can't keep up the increased demand of oxygen by skeletal muscle. So find that the pyruvic acid converts into lactic acid and build up in muscles, causing fatigue and burning.